Here we are. I think we're live. Yeah, we are good. Right. Can you hear me okay?
Hello? Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, that's good. Okay. So, hello, Steve.
Hi, Anna. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad. You?
Very good, thank you.
You're good.
Been a long time.
I know it has been, isn't it? It's been last time. I don't know for, obviously, hello, everybody, whoever's joining us and will be joining us. Obviously, we spoke to you, Steve, probably about a year ago publicly on the channel where we met last time at the Bushcraft show, haven't we?
Yeah, that's it. Maybe a couple of times since then.
Yeah. So how's things been going?
Yeah, it's all good. Just been busy working. Anyone who watches my channel knows I'm just working.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're growing the channel as well, and which is good. Yeah.
Doing good, isn't it? Your subscribers and per video ratio looking good, which is a magical thing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, they're definitely growing. So people are obviously watching the channel, which is good.
Yeah,
that's all I ask.
Yeah. So you're going to the Bushcraft show. So people, if
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going again this year. We're going to be there with Tom and Lee from the Bug Out Shop, and I'll be doing some presentations over on the Saturday and the Sunday, possibly the Monday morning as well.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because unfortunately this year I won't be making this, but again, because I haven't announced it yet, so again, perfect timing if anybody's watching. Yes, unfortunately this year I've got the family's taking priority, so unfortunately I won't be attending, but nonetheless,
it's a shame.
Yes, but if you're doing some videos, Steve, I'm sure we're going to be watching into, your little trips, filming around what's going on. That'd be quite interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely loads of footage I'll get from there.
Yeah, awesome. Okie dokie. So anyway then, today we are talking about the, grid down situations, aren't we? Unfortunately, all familiar for far too many people recently, isn't it?
Certainly is.
Kick off with the Spain, shall we?
Yeah,
Spain. A lot of things, isn't it? A lot
Spain,
of
and not only Spain, Portugal, southern France, apparently Belgium, and some part of the Netherlands as well. So quite a big portion of Europe. Yeah.
There is so much information floating about, more so like speculations, isn't it? To what's been happening, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts then? Because I voiced my opinion. I know you had some on your video. You kind of talked about it briefly as well, didn't you? But what's your thoughts now? The time have passed. Obviously, nobody really come up with a true definition or the answer of what potentially they think.
It's interesting, isn't it? They kind of literally the day after, when they got most of the power back on, they buried the story, and you had to look for the story. It wasn't the headlines anymore, and the papers moved away from it. And then you had Portugal. Yeah, it is interesting. And Portugal turned around, the Prime Minister of Portugal turned around and said, it's definitely not a cyber attack. They ruled that out immediately, because obviously that would have some political implications if they start naming and shaming people. And then he said it was an atmospheric anomaly and was some kind of oscillation overload. I can't remember the exact term now, but when
I can't remember that.
I did a video on this, and I Googled that phrase. And it basically said human-made climate change. So I thought, they're going to blame climate change. Is this a red flag? Is this one of these, these events where they've created it themselves? All conspiracy theory. But they still haven't come up with an answer. A lot of people are saying it was probably a cyber attack. But the encouraging thing is that they had everything pretty much. I know there are people. I get that there are people without power still, but most were up and running within a day.
Yeah. Still, day for unprepared, that's quite a lot of time, especially if people not aware what's happening, isn't it?
But the thing is, though,
do you not find it strange? Well, I find it strange that there are some even YouTube experts coming up to telling people what they think has actually happened, and yet, in fact, the actually true experts can't even tell us what's happening. I find this a little bit strange, but it's so much speculations happening out there, and I just cannot believe that they couldn't possibly work this out, what's actually caused it. And as well, like yourself, I've done a video and I go down the route of the World Economic Forum and the WHO, because this is generally my approach. Like, call me a conspiracy theorist or not, but I normally kind of follow. And if you sometimes see the signs, because they pretty much give it to you in their reports, then you could kind of read between the lines, right? And this is kind of a little bit interesting, because there was a warning there in 2023 warning us of the major outage, and there it was, which I think you agree it's pretty major, isn't it?
it was pretty major. Yeah. But for me personally, I mean, I know you love a conspiracy, and I know
I do.
that we all know about, the WEF agenda. We all know about the 2030, net zero by 2030, and all this kind of stuff, which we know is impossible. Really, it's just not going to work. But rather, for me personally, as a someone who wants to be prepared for any kind of major event, then my prepping doesn't change. It's kind of, as far as I'm concerned, the power went. I've just sat back and observed it and had a look at it. I'm not worried about what the cause was. It doesn't matter what the cause is. They had it all pretty much on within a day. Now, I know that there was a lot of panic. I know there was a lot of unprepared people out there, but that's their problem. As a prepared person, I'm looking at it and thinking, okay, what would I have done in that situation? What would I do if the situation happened in the UK? And because I would consider myself to be reasonably prepared for way longer than a day in the UK. In various ways, and I don't think I'd panic at all. In fact, I quite enjoy using my preps and tried it all out.
That's what I know. People think sometimes that the preppers deliberately want the SHTF to happen because we can just sit there snigger.
Absolutely. Bring it on. No, not really.
Somewhat a little bit of thing, not this so we can laugh at other people, but somewhat to make you feel a bit good about yourself for being prepared, isn't it? But
it's more sort of a justification for what we're doing, and all the things you put in place, and then go, that's been really useful. The fact that I've got a solar backup has been really useful. The fact that I've got food stashed, I didn't have to go out and worry about the supermarkets being closed because they had to close the doors, didn't they, in the supermarkets?
Who would have thought, right? Like, who would have thought that? Was generally people think the no power outage, the card machines were working. People weren't really thinking. I wouldn't even. To be fair, as a prepper, wouldn't even cross my mind that they couldn't even open their doors, because there's no power. But it's crazy. But people there, I've seen images of people like going with their trolleys and doing their weekly shop. It's like the world could be collapsing, right? And they go in there trying to do their weekly shop. Because thing is though, but you don't know. That was my point, right? If you're suddenly, as an average person, not a prepper person. And do you know what I thought about it? Sorry, digressing slightly. I think as a time, really, we should give people names, the non-prepping people names, rather than giving a prepper's name a prepper, where now pretty much should be a majority of people. So we should be normal people, and non-preppers should have some sort of the slang name. But nonetheless, they would just, what would you think, right? Internet got off, right? Electricity got off. And you would just be, oh, what the hell happened? You wouldn't even know where to start, would you? Unless you're the mindset of sort of preparedness and understanding, you would panic when you're in the shop.
I think it affects every individual completely differently. So, let's break this down. The lights go out is usually the first sign of a power outage, right?
Yeah.
And you check the street, especially if it's at night. You check the street. Now, this happened at midday in Spain. So you had, and because it was national, you had traffic lights went out. So it caused, I'm assuming, accidents and a bit of panic, people going about their general day-to-day lives, working in an office and all that sort of thing. So everyone knew what had happened and knew it was national fairly quickly. But even the phone lines went down. Everything went down, and it didn't seem like they had much backup of like generators, because I know a lot of supermarkets in the UK have generators that will kick in. Our water stations all have generators. There's one near me. There's a whacking great big container next to it with a great big exhaust pipe coming out of it. It's a diesel generator, which will probably last quite some time. It's interesting how, but then of course you hear all sorts of stories like, oh, I heard something the other day, I think it might have been a comment on one of my videos where somebody said somebody was able to WhatsApp out of Spain, but not anyone in Spain. And
I had the same comment.
How does that work? WhatsApp uses the internet, so you either have the internet or you don't. I just don't get how that could work. So I'm wondering.
I had the same comment, Steve. That's strange, though.
Did you? Yeah. So it's kind of. Oh, maybe I saw that on your channel then. Maybe that's where I got it from.
But you have people that watch both channels. Don't forget.
Yeah. But it was very weird, and I just thought, well, sometimes you can get a bit Chinese whispers, and the messages can get a little bit mixed, and then the information coming out can end up not being actually what happened. Do you know what I mean? So. But from a UK, I mean, we wanted to discuss, didn't we? What would we do if it happened in the UK? Well, first of all, my first thought, if the internet went down, would be, I can't connect to the internet, therefore I can't work.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest concern. Not the lights, not doing my washing, sticking the dishwasher on, boiling a kettle. I've got backup for all of that. My biggest concern would be, okay, I don't work. If the mortgage
days off, Steve, days off.
Yeah, days off. Yeah, I know I love my days off. Every time I go in the woods, I have a day off. So that's all well and good. Yeah, so I'd just go and set up a tarp, perhaps in the woods somewhere. Just forget everything exists. But then you start to think, okay, so is this long term? If it goes on for more than a day, if it goes on for more than 3 days, and you haven't really heard anything from the government, like a broadcast or something, then I'd start to think this is long term.
Yeah.
Because they obviously don't know what's going on. And if it's for more than 3 days and I can't work, then I'm thinking, okay, what's going to happen with my mortgage is my priority at this stage, right? Till I sell the house. So personally, I'd be like, okay, are they going to give me some leeway?
Of course, because none of them will be working technically,
right?
wouldn't they?
So as long as I've got that sorted, then I'd be like, okay, well now let's have a look at our preps, right? How much food we got? Let's get it all together. I did do Excel spreadsheets of all the food and the dates and everything else, but do you know what? I just haven't got the time or the inclination, to be honest, to go through all of that. I know it's all safe and it's all fine. I rotate it every now and again. So yeah, I do a count up of the food. I work out how many days we've got before we need to go out, and go shopping or raiding or whatever you do. But yeah, lighting, and so I've got enough solar to last. Well, just ongoing, really. So I wouldn't worry about that. I've got
unless they dim the sun a bit more.
Hey?
Unless they dim the sun a bit more.
They dim the sun. Oh my God, there's that as well, isn't there? Yeah.
But do you know what you said about the mortgage? Why would you worry? To me,
I'm just a worrier. I'm just a worrier because since I left, I used to work in a bank, and I was on a big income, and I was used to living a much bigger lifestyle. But the way the banks were all going, I was disagreeing with a lot of what was going on. That they were closing branches left, right, and centre, and I thought I need to get out. So I took an early redundancy, and I downsized everything. So I downsized all my outgoings. Everything was nice. Interest rates were low, and my income was also low. But it was a better lifestyle. My time was my own, right?
Yeah.
All right, we're digressing here, but so then the interest rates have gone sky high, which has taken my mortgage up. Cost of living, we all know about, has gone up. So now my outgoings are more than what they were when I was at the bank, but my income is way lower. So we're really struggling. But it will all change next year because I should be able to access my pension. We're going to sell the house, and then we're going to do some various bits and pieces. But
it wasn't really my thing. Wasn't with the income stuff, but with the banks, if the internet goes down for 3 days, whatever onwards, the banks will have the same issue. It's happening with M&S that can't operate properly. So just because the internet went down doesn't mean you're going to get charged the mortgage, because it's pretty much the world stops literally if there's a global outage. So I wouldn't worry about it, not initially anyway. Because if
there's nothing to worry about. No. Well, perhaps I would literally just up sticks and go and spend a few days in the woods and do some filming.
Yeah,
that'd be the time to do it.
But just the thing is, of people coming back to when you're out, and if you don't know, say if the phones are not working, and this is what really, and I mentioned this on my video a little bit. I found this somewhat as a prep, and obviously I do live rural. I don't use. We barely have any bus services here, not on all the underground, that kind of thing, and then literally in the rural Wales. So I'm kind of forever relying on my van is to commute in anywhere. I barely walk unless I walk to school, and obviously I've changed my EDC since the attempted abduction thing, which I mentioned before. But nonetheless, if you are in the city and suddenly you just get stranded, the horror of, I think, being stuck in a lift or people stuck in the ground, it's a horrible feeling. It's a horrible thing to experience. The whole thing of the thing apart is that experience will scar some people, especially if you're potentially claustrophobic, that kind of thing. And I think people, again, don't understand the importance of the EDC, and very little people covered this on the same news, because people didn't have torches. Yes, some people had phones, but if you're forever on the phone, power runs out really, really quickly. And do you know what I mean? If you run your torch and you're trying to, get online, whatever, you stuffed. And there was
Yeah.
some people reporting there were some sort of young people. They're like, oh my God, I can't get on social media. Sorry, this is your imminent response to power outage. You can't get on social media. This is what you worry about.
For me, to be a bit harsh, I mean, for me, that's survival of the fittest. You know, that's kind of natural selection. If that's the most important thing in your life, social media, then so be it. But you know, I've always, when I've gone up to London on trips, for as long as I can remember, you know, I've always been into camping, right, all my life. And the kids, the two kids have grown up on camping holidays. Might be in the south of France, but we've always camped.
Yeah.
So you have to innovate. You have to have your life with you. So I've always had a man bag with me over my shoulder or a
Is
rucksack.
it a fanny pack? Was it?
No, not a fanny bag. Yeah. I did have one of those years ago. I had a proper shoulder man bag, especially when we were in France, because it's very popular over there. Yeah. And I'd have loads of kit in my man bag. I'd have a bit of tech. I'd have some power banks, and then when I got my portable solar panel, my little 20-watt one, I'd have that in there. I'd have so much stuff. Some of it I'd have to spill over to my wife's handbag. But I'd have kind of prepping gear, and I didn't even realize it was prepping gear at the time. Just looking back, it was stuff that was important, like, you know, torches or a means of lighting, and some, you know, spare cash and things like that. So, you know, if I went out on a day trip now, if I could afford the time off and afford to actually get on a train up to London now, I'd have a backpack, but I'd have some pretty comprehensive gear there, like, you know, spare water. I'd probably even take a stove and a couple of tins with me, just in case I was stranded. And you know, being into the prepping mindset. But your average person, I know you said earlier that the majority of people are now preppers. I'm not sure if that's actually what you said, but I would disagree.
I would hope they are, but I would hope.
Yeah, but they're not. They're not. You know, everyone you talk to in the street wouldn't have a clue. You know, I know that pretty much everyone down my street.
Maybe what I mean, Steve, is we should call other people the
I know what you mean.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Most people would be stuck in a. So I can see why that happened in Spain. People were panicking. Oh, I can't use my phone. I can't do this. I can't. You know, nobody had any comms, even though they were warned literally days before or a couple of weeks before. You know, get yourself 72 hours worth of kit. But because they kind of. They gave you enough information to do more harm than not, really, didn't they? I mean, they didn't tell you need to have this with you at all times. You know, they just kind of joked about it almost. That woman, the European woman, I can't remember her name now, but she just made a joke of it. So I can see why that wasn't taken seriously, and there was a lot of people that were caught out.
Do you reckon that was deliberate? Do you reckon they knew, though? If you think about it, why is there?
Are you going down this conspiracy theory route here again?
Well, yeah, I am into it, but people know I'm into that, because to me, if the signs are there and this happens, then it's no longer a conspiracy, right?
No, okay.
I don't believe in coincidences, though. That's the only thing. I don't believe in coincidences.
I heard somebody say, you know, when we were doing all the videos about the 72-hour stuff that came out, somebody put a comment and said they want you to be prepared for 72 hours to give them time to go to their bunkers. And I thought, God, if that's true, I thought, if that's true, that's awful. Isn't that awful? If that really is true, that's just
but we're nothing to them, though, Steve, are we? Let's be fair. The elite are elite. We are just ants. I don't know what we call them. We are just whatever.
With a little ant bomb. No. It does feel like that.
But you know, also you said obviously we had these warnings and stuff, but apparently. There've been some information saying that in UK we also, prior to this, we had some issues with the electric grid as well, and some people commented on my channel that they had to follow up blackouts in UK. I know probably not relevant, because obviously we have power cuts in UK, short ones all the time, but apparently there was some issues in the power grid in UK prior to that as well. Do you believe that?
Do I believe that what they're reporting is true?
That apparently that we had some issues, like a warning signs that things can be happening. It's
really
hard to tell, isn't it?
It all seems to point to a bit of a false flag, doesn't it? You know, it's like what are you playing at here? You know, why didn't you tell us on the day then that this was happening? Why are you coming out now after Spain's got back on? You know, so was this a test? I don't know. And to be honest, from my preparedness point of view, again, I don't care. I really don't care. I prepare for events like that, right? So it's like, I don't care whether it's deliberate. I don't care, whether it's an EMP, a CME, or a cyber attack, or I don't care. It doesn't change how I would prep at all.
But does it not make you look at it slightly different? Because if it is planned, you know that they could go for extreme ways. Because if it's EMP or CME, you kind of, somewhat, not say you don't know what to expect, but if it's planned, then the plan they're going down the route for, and is going to be the worst plan if it's truly what they're doing. So surely you would want to know, if it is planned, you'll know that they've got something far, far bigger to plan, and then you up your preps.
No, because it wouldn't change my preps. It wouldn't change how I prep. I mean, how would you, if you were
the volume, maybe the volume or the amount.
Yeah, possibly the volume, but we should all be adding. If you've got your 72 hours, or if you're just starting out, you need your food, you need your water, and you need means of getting water and means of purifying and filtering water. So just think, what do you need to survive? You need air, food, water. You need shelter. So if you had to leave, if for some reason, if you were evacuated from your home. I mean, you're saying if this is deliberate, well, I mean, what we're going to end up like Handmaid's Tale, where we're all dragged out of our homes and put into cages and stuff like that. No, I'm not prepped for that. No. But maybe that could happen. I really don't know.
I would also probably go down the reset route. Probably down the reset.
Yeah. All right. So the reset, well, which we know, where for instance, and I don't want to get political, but we've had the.
Oh my God! Sorry, my chair just collapsed down.
Oh, well done. You're right.
Yeah, sorry, the chair just got. Sorry, I'm not my chair.
Oh, you need a new pneumatic piston.
Sorry.
I can't remember where I was now. But anyway, yeah, it wouldn't change. So the cause of it might make me more or less angry.
Yeah.
Right? If it was deliberate, I'd be angry about it. If it wasn't deliberate, I wouldn't be so angry about it.
No,
but it wouldn't change my preps.
Yeah, no, I would look at it, if that's, again, obviously we all have personal different opinions. That's absolutely fine. Yeah. That's what makes us, with different people, isn't it? We prep differently. That's why I say preparedness is a journey, but it's individual to every one of us. To me, I would look at it if I knew it was just a natural thing. It just, something just happened. It's like, okay, I keep prepping, I still obviously keep adding on to the preps. You grow your knowledge, you grow your experience, you grow what you buy, you expand the varieties, the options, that kind of thing. And then if I thought that, say, the agenda, be it 2030 or whatever, the agenda, which was time sensitive, when you exactly knew what is going to happen because they planned for some certain thing, then suddenly, rather than maybe trying to do just a little bit prep at the time, I'll just go just that one little bit step further and to make sure I do absolutely maximum. And I will stop up more extra things, maybe like seeds, and like we'll talk about the equipment, like food preparedness equipment, or anything that will be stopped potentially buying when the social credits come into place, if everything collapses, that kind of thing. So I would want to buy those things now, and I would say I will get into the debt for doing so, because I know if the financial system gets reset, where you own nothing, you be happy, I'll have all the kit, and then I'll hide it, bury, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like whatever. But I'll have this. So when the reset happens, okay, I can't go out and buy certain things, but I already have them. Whether now I won't rush and buy things, because if it's CME, one thing, okay, I'm not threatened with limited abilities to purchase certain kit. That's my how I look at it.
So you're talking about having a warning, having a timely warning.
Yeah, so that's the point of knowing if this was planned attack.
We're never going to know exactly when this is going to happen, are we? Then they're not going to give us an actual date. I mean, if you go on YouTube, there'll be plenty of YouTubers who'll give you an actual date when the financial.
It was yesterday, wasn't it?
They'll tell you the exact date at which the UK is going to have a long-term blackout. They'll tell you all this other crap, which they really don't have any idea at all. They're just doing it for clicks. So we don't know when this stuff's going to happen. So what I'm saying is, if you're prepping, you prep for survival, right? You don't just go, well, I'm going to prep. I think I'll prep for a grid down scenario.
Yeah.
And then something else happens, or I'll prep for a fuel shortage, and then a grid down happens. All of those things could be affected, or could affect each other, right? So you prep for survival. So you prep food, you prep water, you prep shelter, all the Maslow's hierarchy of needs you want to be prepping for, and then you'll be prepped for any scenario. So it doesn't matter if it's a government caused blackout or if it's a government caused steal of property, which is what they're doing, steal of land, or all this sort of thing, or a blockade of we're going to stop trucks delivering to supermarkets, so you can't get any food because there's all empty shelves. Well, if you're prepping for a general scenario, then you'll be prepped for that. Do you see what I mean? And then you just add to that. Now, the sense of urgency that you're talking about with specific warnings, I don't go by. Where are you going to get these warnings from? Are you going to go to the media, or which media? Sky News, BBC? They're all full of shite. So you're going to go YouTube? A lot of that's full of shite as well.
Majority.
So nobody knows when or where this is all going to happen. It's all.
But there are some bits, like, again, as I said, with the WF and all the stuff that comes out, that kind of somewhat tells you. Like I said, the book by Mr. Schwab, if you look at it, they kind of plan out to what's going to happen, whether it's going to or not. But the point is, with the preparedness, we're not talking about survival, because if you're preparing for the reset, you're going to be living a happy life according to them. You're just going to be controlled to what you do, or to what you can buy. So that's kind of somewhat a little bit different. And that's my preps. A lot of them are, obviously, I'm preparing for a lot of other things as well, as the preppers do. But I do take into account the potential of the ability or not to, or in fact, not ability to buy certain things because they tell you can't, if that makes sense. But again, as I said, it's kind of
CBDC will be a massive shock to the people. And I don't think again, it's people that within who are prepping, people who are aware of the WEF. There's a lot of people out there who don't even know what the WEF are, and probably don't care, and live their lives, and will probably carry on living their lives not worrying about any of it. And to be honest, for even as a prepper, we'll probably carry on living our lives with no issues. The WEF is not a government organisation. They think they have control. Really, do they? I don't know. But again, it all comes down to the survival basics. If they're going to come and raid your home and take all your stuff, and then lock you up in cages and tell you what you can't buy, and literally lock you up like the Matrix and just use you as a battery, then they're going to do that, aren't they?
I don't think it's going to be that bad. My goodness, I don't think it's going to be more like China. More like China control, not like let's put it.
And how are you going to stop? How are you going to stop that? It's like Biden when he turned around and said he was aiming his comments at the kind of the right wing gun hoarders or Second Amendment enthusiasts, and he was aiming his comments at them when he said, well, what are you going to do? You're going to take us on we've got F-15 fighters, nuclear armed stuff. We've got a massive military. What are you going to take us all on, are you? So, I don't know if you've seen the film Civil War, but it's not pretty for the civilians. It's not going to happen. A war from the civilians against the government is it's one-sided. There's no way you are going to win. So if you think the WEF are going to take over imminently and destroy our lives, then there's not a lot you can do about it. Seriously, you're not going to, in the UK, we're all going to run to the woods. No,
I know that's just a lot of that's just a lot of nonsense. I know this is like.
So as preppers, and not everyone's going to be a prepper. You've got what is it now? 67, 70 million people in the country, in the UK now, more or less. And, a very small amount are what I'd say we consider preppers.
Yeah.
Very, very, very small amount.
But it's funny that you said
10%, because less than 10%, maybe, maybe even 1%. I don't know. A very, very small amount.
It depends how you paint preppers, though, isn't it? Because some people generally buy stuff they don't consider themselves preppers. They just got the stuff like in the back of their pantry. They don't. The preppers now, again, this comes back the same with what the media paints. Preppers run in the woods, making films, that kind of thing. Bag out bags, like just a standard American stuff, which is not what a majority of the true preppers are. Yes, of course, we all have bag out bags. Yes, I have one. I've got the get home bag.
But there's extremes of both. there's extremes of both, isn't there? And you know, if somebody's got extra food in their pantry and that's it, they're not a prepper. They're not aware of
there's
the
still
basic
some
needs
better preppers than some other people that have other
yeah,
things.
yeah. There's all right. If you're going to do a tier, then there'll be
Yeah.
some people that are more prepared. But you know, there might be maybe the majority of people have got more food in their pantry than the next street or something. But I bet you they haven't got water filters or water purification tablets,
No.
and they don't know how to source water if there's no rain incoming and no water coming from your taps.
Yeah.
So whereas preppers, you'd hope, would know about those things. So what I'm saying is actual preppers who have got all the bases covered, you know, have got backup power, backup methods of cooking, backup ways of purifying water, and having food storage. Having food storage is not really prepping. It's all the other stuff around that. And
for
I'd say
3 days.
the people,
According to government,
everyone who's got those bases covered, I would say, is more likely to be a prepper in my eyes. And those numbers are very, very small in the UK and will remain small because the mindset is just not there. It's just not there. In America,
it's mind blowing though. After all this stuff that's happened with the C-19, and we had power outages and all these disasters, the things that have been happening across the world, and people are still just head in the sand. It's crazy.
Yeah,
but, you know, and we're off tracking because we haven't chatted on publicly for a while. It's fine. It's how normally first chats go, right? We say one thing and then there's that. Your thoughts on let's stockpile gold and silver because it's going to be a really good trading thing. Go on. Your thoughts on that? Gold and silver is a battering item. Sorry, I didn't want to put you on a spot.
You want to ask me about gold and silver in what way?
Like the people say, oh, let's stockpile gold and silver because it's going to be a really good barter item. Yeah, for bottled water.
Bartering. I don't know.
That's what generally people say, stockpile gold and silver so you can batter your food. So you can then have a little coin of gold and you're going to part exchange it for a kilo of rice.
The only reason I would ever invest in gold is precisely that, invest in gold, as in if financial markets were to crash, like really crash, then I'd have at least some asset. For bartering, no. If somebody came to me with a bar of gold in an absolute societal breakdown situation, I'd turn them away. Gold's useless. I'd want mitts. I'd want guns. You know, even being in the UK, I'd want any kind of weaponry. I'd want meds, food, water, stuff like that. So you know, that's so someone with more meds goes to someone with less meds, who has more food than the person with the meds, and they do a swap. That's the kind of bartering I'm thinking of. If it gets to that, gets to bartering, I don't think gold or silver is going to be your friend, really.
No, I just said that they might send the gold for wealth preservation and for financial hardship. Well, the gold now has been down 25% for the past 3 months, so it's not really. It's gone up, but it's now going down, and because it's not backed by anything. To me, gold and silver, it's not like you say. Obviously, you got some. I assume you got some crypto. I have crypto. Were lost. Oh my god, more than 50% of all of the because since the market's crashed, isn't it?
I don't have any crypto. I got rid of that a long time ago. No, I used to mine it for free. So I used to mine Ethereum. This is brilliant. This is only a few years ago, and
this is what lost the majority of the money is in bloody Ethereum.
Right, so I had I never invested. Well, I had some of it help, but I converted it all to cash. So I had a solar setup. I had a spare computer that I stripped down to bare bones with a really decent graphics card in it, so I could mine Ether. But it was run 24 hours off my solar and my batteries, so it was free, and so it was running for free, right?
Yeah.
But then I think something happened. They changed it over, and you couldn't mine for it anymore using that particular graphics card.
Didn't it become illegal though?
No, it's not illegal. It's not illegal at all. No. You can still mine Bitcoin, right. But you'll have to pay for your outlay. Will be like the size of a warehouse worth of computer equipment to do it, and it has to be certain type of stuff, you know. So, but yeah, with the Ether, it was great. I made several grand. And used it to pay off my energy bills for a couple of years. So that was great, but you just can't do it anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not invested in crypto. No, I've stayed well away from that.
No.
Luckily. Although, funny enough, with that recent downturn in the stock market,
it would have been a good time to buy some. Yes.
Right. The Bitcoin was the most stable asset going until it finally succumbed, which it did succumb, and it went for a Burton. But during that time, it was actually quite stable, which was quite interesting to
it did
watch.
do quite well. But I did I bought something else that was down. It was down 94%. Something that I bought, and is now more than doubled. More than doubled in there. So like obviously nobody knows. It's one of those things you kind of invest their money, and you know, initially when we invested it, we thought it's going to be there for retirement. It's either going to happen like what happened with the Bitcoin. People that invested a long time ago. If it goes up and you're suddenly like multi-millionaire, great. If it doesn't, well, it's tough luck, isn't it? It is what it is.
Well, that's it. Yeah, it is a gamble.
Yeah. Anyway, so think then, and the preparedness and power cuts. This is originally what we were meant to be talking about. Then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Hello, everybody who's joined us halfway through as well. Sorry, I can't keep up with the comments.
I was just looking at the comments. Actually, it looks like a lot of people agree that, or seem to agree that gold is all right for investment, but not for bartering. So you know, I mean, there's no look. The thing is, and I keep going back to this. There's no prepping manual, right? Well,
no, of course not.
There's lots of prepping manuals by people who think that they're the voice on prepping manuals, but there's no one prepping manual. You know, you prep for what you think you're gonna need, and you might be right and you might be wrong, but there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer.
You froze. Yeah. But no, but the thing is that with the stuff, you know, obviously we covered, I think every prepper done a video on the butter items before, didn't they? I just seen some, because of, they say, gold and silver. It's very hard to butter something. Like if you need water, you need food, and you've got the gold that's technically was worth like, I don't know, hundreds, whatever, to exchange that. How do you split it? You possibly can't. And at the same time, at the end of the world, like SHTF, really, whatever's worth the currency, or whatever the currency could be, gold be currency or silver, it's only dictated by the demand. If there's no demand, then the government or whatever declares that it's worthless, then that means there's just nothing anyway, isn't it? But anyway,
it depends on the situation as well, though, Anna, because you might, if there's a massive national incident that causes major casualties, and you know you've got, I'm just thinking on the fly here, but if you've got hospitals that can't cope, and we're reduced to bartering because the supermarkets can't open for whatever. I don't know what sort of catastrophe I'm talking about, but something that happens that takes out half a country, like maybe a massive meteorite, something that's way out of the blue, something you can't really prep for. If you're bartering, then there's going to be a lot of need for meds and medical items, right?
So it's hard to stock though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it depends on, so it depends again on the situation, it depends on the catastrophe as to what that currency might be. So when you said the currency might change, you might find that you know, we know that it's going to literally be the end of the world, and that's it, and we've only got a week. Then in which case cigarettes and booze might be the currency. Because you just want to get wasted and just watch it happen. Do you know what
watch it happen, don't they? Some people said before,
survival won't be an option. That's it. But with
the meds, right? With the meds is really hard, right? Because like what we allowed limit of 2 bleeding paracetamols or whatever items per trip of the shop. Like I know it's been like this for a few years, but it's crazy. You can't just go and like stockpile. See, even in the States, when they can buy paracetamol, they can buy this in like massive, like I don't know, 500 piece thing at once. That's fine. For us, it's like, oh, it's 8 or 16. It's just madness. It's very difficult.
There's ways of stockpiling plenty of meds.
How? Please do tell, Steve.
Well, not on live maybe, but I mean, people will know. If you just have to do some research. There are ways of getting hold of all sorts of meds, and
legit or like a cigarette, you can buy it for like £1 a pack, and then not really tobacco.
No, legit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll leave that to be. Just some.
Yeah. Have a chat after.
I know the YouTube sometimes doesn't like when I've done some live chats before with Mark. Sometimes you say something, and I actually got it wasn't demonetized, but it was limited monetization because certain things that were said that apparently.
Yeah, we don't want to get you thrown off.
No, exactly. anyway, so yes, the comms. Can we talk about comms? Obviously, my main thing is that as a preparedness, right? I told you that before. My comms situation is I'm not prepared. I'm going to admit this on air.
Thanks, Mike. Sorry, he's on it. Mike's comment about sailing around the world is a good way of getting meds.
Yeah.
If you Google that, they'll tell you everything you need to know.
Oh, okay. But
Comms,
yeah, so,
right?
The communications. I am very much, apart from some walkie-talkies. I do not have. And can somebody start a comms? Not say start it, but cheaply get some sort of thing for emergency. And again, that's my point, is for people that are outside, say in the cities that they don't have a cars. What do you have any suggestions for something that people can have to carry with them? Because the worst case is not to be able to contact your loved ones if in the event of SHTF when you're out. Is there anything, do you know?
So, all right. So, again, it depends on the situation, right? So I work like really close to my home. Generally, I'm sort of 5-10 minutes away. So if something happened and the whole phone network went down, well, I wouldn't be able to work because I use my phone. I use an app on my phone. And I wouldn't worry about my mortgage payment, right? Let's forget all about that.
Yeah.
And we don't worry about me not working. So that's all covered. And how do I communicate? Well, I'd just walk home. I'd get my bag out of my car, which has got my spare water in it and a few bits and pieces in. And if it's chucking it down, I'd put my poncho on, which is in my car as well.
Yeah.
And then I would walk home, and it would take me 10-15 minutes max, unless I was out a little bit further, in which case it might take me an hour, but it'll be fine. So I don't really need necessarily excess comms, but I have a Bofeng radio. I have a Bofeng UV5R, which is a small little thing. It's like one of those.
Yeah.
And I've done videos on this before, and I'll be doing stuff about this at the Bushcraft show. So a little Bofeng like that, it's essentially just a walkie-talkie, but you're supposed to have a ham radio license to operate it, right?
Yeah.
But if I was going to London with my family or with my wife, I would take my walkie-talkies with me. Now they're UHF, they're not VHF. You don't need a license to use them. But if we were separated or the phones went down, I'd have them tuned into the same channel. And so if you said you got walkie-talkies, that's all I'd do is we'd know that, all right, if the phones go down, if there's an event, we turn the walkie-talkies on. That would be our kind of code between us. And if we were separated, right? So if we were separated and everything went down, walkie-talkies go on, and we'd hope we're in range. And the UHF are pretty good around buildings, right? Whereas these things on VHF are not particularly great around buildings. They're better for more long distance line of sight sort of stuff.
So what's the longest thing? Do you know what the walkie-talkies? Because my point is, like, if you've got the vulnerable people at home, or for example, if, like, again, as a prepper, right? Let's say is a, I don't know, meteor shower, and, like, some houses get wiped out. I've seen a film the other day, and they're running around trying to avoid, things happening. But in some places they're okay. So if you're separated, right, you can't just walk home because it's far away. You want to get hold of there. Is there anything somebody can have that it's really small? I appreciate you obviously can't know everything, like, in terms of the sizing and stuff. But my point is to go for a really extreme scenario, because say Dan works, say, an hour away from home. He's got to get home back, but it's going to take him like good, a few hours to get home. He's got everything set up. But if something happens and you need to check if the, house is still standing or that kind of thing, like, is there anything that people can have, or have a really long range walkie-talkies that are over?
No, there are things called mesh networks. It's too complicated for
but
really.
But it's not enough funding though for them. There's not enough people on it. They're all funded by people, and there's more the joy that gets growing. It's rubbish in terms of.
From a ham radio, I mean, I don't know a lot about these mesh networks and stuff like that, and I've never got into it. And
I researched before. It depends. The more people you get, the better, the bigger it grows, the bigger the coverage.
Absolutely. But it's the same with even VHF. I mean, VHF you can get dozens of miles with VHF, but and that's kind of line of sight. So you can pick up people in France, across the channel with VHF, no problem at all. But if there's anything in the way, like a hill, you're not necessarily going to get the best signal. And if Dan's an hour away, so we're looking at.
We are around the mountains as well, though.
Yeah, so you got stuff in the way. Plus, he's probably an hour away is about 40 miles away, something like that.
Give or take.
Hour's drive. hour's drive, 40 miles away. So VHF is going to be tricky. So the only other thing that you could use is a 20-meter band radio, which you to even learn how to use it, you're going to need a radio license. And they are massively expensive. You're talking thousands of quid for a rig.
Could you get caught for it?
Could you?
Do you get caught for it? Could you get caught for it if you use it? How could somebody know?
You could get probably reported and then triangulated via the amateur radio community, but it's not something you play with. A 20-meter band is going to cost you thousands just to get it set up. It's going to cost you a course to learn exactly what you're doing with it and everything else. I haven't even dabbled in 20-meter. 10-meter, which still has good range, that's CB radio. CB radios are still around, but again, they're limited. They're limited by stuff in the way, buildings, hills in the way, and their range is around 8 to 10 miles, something like that.
Right.
So VHF and UHF, the little Bofengs are great, but 40 miles away, he's just better off getting himself home. But if you're out and about together and you get separated and you're sort of within a mile of each other, then a walkie-talkie, if you've got good line of sight, will work. For about a mile range, even a few miles. They're advertised usually about 3 kilometers, these things, but I've tested mine down the road, and 500 yards with buildings in the way, you start to lose clarity on it.
Yeah. You see, I remember a long time ago, I used to work at the car sales, believe it or not. All my life were pretty much in the sales, but they had like a phones, normal kind of phones, but they were wireless, like a deck type phone. And apparently, because obviously sometimes the car cores like really, really big. Anyway, there was some phones there. The ranges were like good few kilometers, and like how good was that? Just with the phone. Of course, yes, it relied on obviously the power originally, but it had a battery. But by far, they seem to have far better, and we're talking about good 20 years back, by far better range for some reason that you do on certain walkie-talkies for not a lot. And I'm really surprised
they were probably SIM-based radios. So in Raynet, when we're using stuff in very hilly areas, we use a SIM card-based network, and but that relies on mobile towers. So it won't always be direct. There are some direct comms like that, but it still requires some kind of base to set up. So just walkie-talkies between two people, it's not going to work like that.
No. Okay, fair enough. But anyway, so again, as
far as I know, anyway, I could be wrong.
Yeah, the thing is, there probably are some other stuff there that people are just not aware of, that maybe exists or people developing. I don't know, but it just kind of. You think by now, my chair is dropping again. Sorry, I'm disappearing down. By now, you think somebody will design something really true that works without need for the more the better type thing to get it, growing. But this is, for me, this is my faux pas. We've got walkie-talkies on the bigger range, and we've got 3 walkie-talkies for our little one. Again, see, people don't, as a preparedness, right? A lot of people are just doing this, and they're kind of aiming this like, single person type there. But generally, preppers have families, and it makes it so much harder, whatever it is that you're preparing for, knowing if you have a dependent on you, especially young ones. It just makes that.
There's with regards to what you're just saying about comms, in our current day and age, should we? Your question was, should we have comms that by now we should, in a developing world and everything else, we should have comms that are capable of traveling the distance and everything else, yeah?
Yes, without paying a fortune or paying for the license of transmitting.
Right, so paying a fortune, there's your key. So absolutely, we have that tech. Military use it all the time, right? So a military person, the comms man in the military, will have a backpack, and he'll have a very, very high wattage output radio, which will be able to go for miles and miles and miles, right? And then he'll be able to communicate with someone way past enemy lines or from behind them and enemy lines, everything else, for hundreds of miles even. But to get that kind of kit, one, you got to, it's kind of military spec, and two, you're talking thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. So if you've got a kind of a level 3 ham radio license, you then have party to where you can actually build your own radios. So you legally can't build your own transmitting radio on VHF or UHF unless you have a license. Once you have that license, you can build a radio, but you are restricted to certain power limits, right? But they do let you go pretty high. I mean, these things transmit on 5 watts, 10 watts, I think. No, this one's 15 watts. My limit for my license, because I've only got the basic one, is about 25 watts. But you can go up to about 300 watts on a radio that you've built yourself. So there is a way you could build it, probably a lot cheaper than thousands.
But it's not for average person to do, wasn't it?
No,
I suppose not the kind of thing.
You're not going to. But there's no. It's all about supply and demand, though, isn't it? Because if you walk into a store, is a store going to be profitable by having all of this kit laid out? How many customers are they going to get on average in a day walking into their store going, "Yeah, I'd like that £1,000 piece of kit there that which I don't know how to use." There's no demand for it, and that's why, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's crazy though, isn't it? Because you think by now, like, but so do you know the frequency you said before? Sorry, do you remember last time we talked about the comm stuff? You said the frequency, and did you like show the waves? They say the higher the waves are, that means that the further it can transmit because it like goes up against like the sea level. Or am I just making this nonsense up?
No, I don't think did I say that? You've frozen. You're frozen.
No, you frozen. You're back in the room.
I'm not sure what I said now, but you've got so certain waves will travel further than other waves, if you know what I mean. So because they go
higher, like in terms of the sea level part, is that?
Well, you've got the ionosphere, which is part of the atmosphere,
right.
which is what certain radio waves bounce off of. But you need to be on a very, very like a long wave, not a short wave. So your frequency needs to be lower than VHF and UHF. So I'm talking about like the 20 meter bands, which is where the wavelength is 20 meters. Will travel very, very long distances. So you can. So I've got a receiver on 20 meter bands, which you can use on USB. So I plug that in. I've got an aerial up on my desktop here, and I was able to reach Miami in Florida the other day.
Oh, really?
Those conditions just happened to be good, and I could hear it. I was tuning in. There was somebody transmitting on a radio station in Miami, and the reason I picked that up is because it was on a USB radio. So it's called what the hell's it called? USB radio. I can't remember. Somebody else will know. I've been put on the spot. But yeah, you can pick up. You can't transmit on those things, right?
Right.
Because if you wanted to transmit on 20 meters, you're going to be talking thousands, $3,000 for a piece of kit to do that.
Wow.
Which you can get, and they're quite common. If you do a search for a 20 meter ham radio, you'll find them, and you'll find some cheap knockoffs. But you're talking about $3,000 for a new bit of kit to transmit on. But you can pick up signals, and you can pick up anyone on one of these software based radios.
Okay, awesome. I have to. Do you know what I have to? I keep saying to myself, it's one of those things I'm like really have no knowledge about. Amongst everything else I do, that is not. And I know this it doesn't really seem like a priority, but we know the communication for preppers is, is a big thing, isn't it? It's especially if you work a party, you've got family, it's got to be done. But it's.
I think it's overlooked. And but I think literally a set of walkie-talkies would be enough for most people, really. A set of walkie-talkies, maybe a Bofeng. You can have a lot of fun with a Bofeng. They can be quite complicated. Your chair's knackered.
I know. Yeah. It's like it's possessed. I work on it every day, and yet it's now dimming me.
You've definitely broken it.
But no, we've got walkie-talkies, and it's fine. We had actually played with a little one on Sam, and we ended up catching some other kids on the thingy for the play ones. But nonetheless, anyway. So the last bit, then let's talk about. Sorry, the preparedness. We've got a few more minutes, right? So let's just get this. So the off-grid power goes out, right, Steve? So what do you do? What's your things? What's or any advice you could possibly give to people? What's
okay. So there's this is where preppers differ, right? And we know what the prepping community is like. Everyone disagrees with each other and says no,
Backstab
I'm
each
right,
other,
you're
yeah,
wrong, and all
happens.
this. All that, that's what it's just the way, the nature of it. I've discovered, but that's because there's no manual, right? You can't go quoting from a textbook, so everyone's got their own opinion. And my opinion of what my setup is, my setup might be absolutely, totally non-suitable for somebody else. Somebody else's setup might be completely non-suitable for me. For instance, you got people, and I've got a family member who's got a massive solar setup that he's done. He was partly, I think, or I hope, partly inspired by my little setup, and he's gone full on. Right, he's gone, separate cage with all the gear in. He's got these lithium battery banks, which are about 5 kilowatt each. He's got, I don't know, 12,000 watts of panels on his roof and all this sort of thing. It costs several grand, right?
Yeah.
Your average Joe can't do that, and I no way can afford that. So at the moment, so what I've done is I've got a few hundred watts of panels on my roof. I've got two separate battery banks, or say I've got about a kilowatt of panels. So 1,000 watts of panels. I've got two separate battery banks, two separate inverters. I've got another small battery bank, which is more portable, which I use all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make a smaller one to take camping with me, things like that. So there's ways and means. But what I've done is that, so in a grid down situation, my solar backup won't power my house. Right, it's not like one of these big setups that cost thousands where they can just go, oh yeah, I'll just switch over, and we're now running off solar, no problem at all, and they're off grid.
Yeah.
I can't do that. So I probably couldn't even boil a kettle with mine. So I'd be getting out my extra gas stove, my alternative methods of boiling water, and I'd be able to boil water on there. I've got a shower pump that goes into a container of water that I would have to maybe heat either on the gas stove or on my wood burner, depending on when all this SHTF happens. If it was winter, I mean, summer would be okay, but winter, you get less coming in from your solar. But I've got battery backup. I had a comment the other day on one of my videos about solar, and it just shows the lack of understanding. So they said, "Oh, solar's all well and good, but there's a thing called night." It was kind of quite pointed, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting that somebody doesn't, but that could be someone who only understands it from a point. They might even have solar panels on their roof with no batteries. That's grid type, and they're quite right. At night, they can't get any power at all from it because they've got battery back.
That's a misunderstanding again.
It's a misunderstanding. So there's lots of people might be like that. Yeah, the majority of people might be like that. I don't know. They may not have a clue how solar works. So for me, it's very simple because I've done it, been there and sorted it all out. But for me, what I've done is I've rewired lots of things in the house to 12 volt, 12 volt DC. So rather than having to worry about, I need an inverter, I've got to try and switch it all over so that the whole house can run off it. No, I'll just have DC alternatives that I can then plug into solar. And that for me is the way that I've set it up. And so I would be able to, we've got a washing machine that runs on a very, very low wattage. I've got lighting all around the house that's on DC, 12 volt, just in case. So I'd have lights, I'd have radios, I'd have charging, I'd have all my devices charged up and everything else, no problem at all. There's not a lot else I use electricity for, really. Well, computer, but I'd have a laptop that wouldn't need anywhere near as the wattage as my computer. It's generally just lighting. My cooker's gas, but when the pressure's gone in the gas, your pressure, once that's gone, you'd have no gas, I suppose, with no power nationally. So you'd have an alternative cooking method, which I've got.
Yeah.
So my recommendation for a grid down is just have some backup of everything, really. Have some torches, have some, I'm a big fan of solar. So I would always say just have some kind of solar and don't shy away from it, because if it might seem complicated if you don't. To me, it doesn't at all, but I had to start somewhere.
Yeah. But no, because people don't have to go to. Say again.
Yeah, I had to start somewhere. There was a point where I didn't know anything about solar power or battery storage or anything like that, but it didn't take much. You just learn it.
Yeah. But don't forget, doesn't have to be like even inverters and stuff. we don't we've got the setup, we've got the panels, but it's all connected through the cables to a different power station directly, like the solar generators. We don't have the inverters. There's no, because we've got a few of those. We've got probably like, I don't know, well, good few of them, and we just alternate to plug them in, piggy bank, charge them, and use that. So there is obviously an easy option for people who are just starting. But the
well,
thing
your
is,
inverter is in your power, is in your,
it's in
is in
the
there,
solar generator. So
already
people
in
don't
there.
have to connect things. People could just buy some solar panels, knowing obviously have to, put the cables through to inside, outside, that kind of thing, connected thing. It's simple as. But I did have the same things. Unfortunately, people say now, when people are going to start dimming the sun, oh, wave goodbye to your solar. Well, even in a really, really cloudy day, the solar panels are still taking, they're still taking a race. Like even in now, or in the winter, whatever, for the previous to the hour sunny weather, we're still in the morning. Like still could take easy like 100 watts from nothing really, if it's cloudy.
I
So
think even in winter, and I know that people say, oh, solar panels don't work in Scotland. I beg to differ. If you've got batteries and if you've sized your system up according to your daylight hours, and you've sized it properly, and you've sized your battery bank properly to what your needs are, and your needs might be 12 volt, they might be to run your house. Either or. If you've sized it properly, then yes, it might take longer to get the power into your batteries, but you'll get it. You'll get it. And we get cloudy days down here, and we might be in the south down here, but in Wales, your weather over there is shite, isn't it?
Yeah, this year it's been a-okay, but generally it's been like we had 4 or 5 months of rain or cloud just before that, so it's kind of depressing. And yes, we have suffered because we don't have batteries. We've got, I don't know, might have 10,000 watt hours in our power things. This is like if you do without any depleting. But again, depends how much the power's out. There's different matter. And again, I'll do the video because I know people want to show my setup, which is very basic. It's based around just very straightforward things. But nonetheless, other like tips of the preparedness, right? Is people of not opening the fridge freezers, that kind of thing, because it's surprising that how many people not kind of aware of the basic things they should do when the power goes.
It's hard to cover everything especially on one live chat. It would be hard to cover the whole. You can't.
Of course, we're not going into. No, I'm not saying. I know we've been an hour now.
But from a grid down point of view, I mean, my personal opinion, as I said earlier, before a lot of people were probably watching, was that I'm not worried about a grid down situation. I may be wrong, and but I have yet to be proved wrong. That when half of bloody Europe can go out and they can have most of it. I know they haven't got all of it, but most of it on within a day. Look at Heathrow substation goes on fire for whatever reason, whether it's sabotage or not. 15,000 homes without power on the next day. Flights resumed, no problem. It's not a national emergency and everything else. So if that was to happen all the way around the country, I still think, if every substation went on fire, they'd have backups or they'd have some way of rerouting and we'd have power on fairly quickly. I know a lot of people disagree with that. Unless the what?
CME.
Well, we don't know, do we? We don't know. We don't know.
But the CME will burn. Do you remember the 1860? Was it 1860?
It didn't do damage across the whole face of the earth where that was. No, we don't know a lot about it. We don't know a lot about it. We don't know what a CME. We don't know we don't know what a CME would actually damage, because we haven't experienced it. Because there's a load more tech in the way now.
Yeah.
Will it destroy everything? Well, we just don't know. We don't know. There's even several schools of thought as to whether a Faraday cage is correctly done, whether you earth it, whether you don't earth it. People don't know. So and I just think the chances of a CME happening are about the same as a chance of a meteor. Again, it could be
saying that. We do one, aren't we? They said like in.
Would you all of it? Would you for I don't know? Would you for the planet to break in half? Would you for the moon to collapse? Would you all this crap? But as far as I'm concerned, I'm looking at real stuff, and you could spend your life panicking, about all this stuff. If you've got the basics squared away and you just keep adding to them, you don't need to worry, do you?
Yeah, but you generally the prepping is not about panicking, is it? We don't want people to panic, but we just want people to be prepared. That's the idea, isn't it?
You can't go out and suddenly go, oh my God, I need to go out and buy all this shit now. I did that in the early days. I spent thousands on loads and loads of crap and didn't have a clue how to use it all. And I've now spent the subsequent years learning what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, and so then you get in a position where you might have a lot of gear, but you've also got the skills and the wherewithal to adapt, because you can guarantee that if there's a catastrophe that happens in the UK, whether it's a grid down or whatever, this is why I say I don't care what caused it. It doesn't bother me what caused it. It's how what am I going to do in the meantime?
Yeah.
And if it looks like it's long term, am I prepared for a long-term grid down situation? Yes, in a way, but when you get more long-term, you're going to get societal breakdown. You're going to get people running up and down your streets, raiding houses. You're going to get groups forming. Some of them will be armed. You know, are you prepared for that? No, I'm not. I haven't got the money or the resources to prepare for all of that. So I'm still sticking with I don't think the grid will go down long-term. I don't think it will.
That's fine. But majority of the people, don't forget, prepare. Many things happen to average people without even influence of outside government or weather. People have their little SHTF on the regular basis. It just calls life, isn't it? Shit happens, sorry.
Absolutely.
It's just what it is for everybody. And the little things, or big things for somebody, could be little things for somebody else, or it could be vice versa. And this whole preparedness is that if something happens, you're there, you've got your stuff to get you through a few days. That's goodness, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what my channel's always been about. With saying everyday prepper has always been about that. Is I prep for any everyday disruption to my general lifestyle.
Yeah,
and that can happen in all sorts of forms, like you say. You know, it could just be my neighbour's shed in a storm decides to take off and land on my conservatory, which it did 2 years ago. And I had to, you know, in a major storm when it was raining and everything else, it was all coming through the conservatory.
Oh no!
And so I had to board it all up. So I had the tools on hand. I had my power drills and all that sort of stuff. They were all battery charged and they were charged on my solar. You know, if we'd had a grid down at the same time, I'd have still been able to charge them up because I've got my battery backup and everything else. Do you know what I mean? So I'm prepped for a lot of scenarios, and some of them have happened, and some of them are probably yet to happen.
But just the last thing. So you're talking about the random thing, right? Random thing. Going to mention this today. One of our neighbours, 2 houses down the road, knocked on my door, say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have a situation," or something like, "I have in trouble," because apparently, because our 2 new build houses, or not new build, but fairly new ones comparing to this house, apparently, he said, his sewage is now backing up 0.5 meter high. So he called the Welsh water or something. They're going to be coming up tomorrow. And if bless him goes, "Oh, would you mind? I appreciate if you got to go, but would you mind, like, you know, limit the use, because his sewage is building up." And it's like, again, this is pretty big if you suddenly your house full of somebody else's shite.
Oh, so your neighbour knocked on your door and asked you not to shit as much?
Yeah, pretty much. So yes. It's like, bless him, he's an elderly gentleman, and obviously he's panicking because the sewage build up like 0.5 meter up, and because apparently our houses are going into like his direction somehow. I don't know ins and outs, but that's, apparently we've been told not to try to limit the access to
well, that's just not going to happen, is it? Oh, yeah.
But again, the shit happens, isn't it? That's the point.
The shit really has hit his fan. Yeah.
So there we are. Anyway, on this note, then, we haven't much covered or much. Well, we kind of gone through that. Considering it's our first live chat for a very long time, Steve.
Yeah.
Is anybody got any questions for Steve before he goes?
Let's just have a look at the comments. There's loads of comments. It's all good. It's all good stuff.
All good. Okay. Right.
Hopefully,
Steve, that's not going to be our last one.
is a budget-friendly option, definitely. Suburban preppers gone for a walk. They've all buggered off.
It's kind of nice weather. It's kind of really calm. Might sit in the garden.
It's been quite windy,
good, isn't it?
And the sea's been really rough today. It's been lovely.
Have you been by the sea?
I was considering getting the lilo out.
Okay. Anyway, no questions so far. Then that's fine. That's cool.
No. Cool.
All right. Well, Steve, it was a really great pleasure having you on the channel.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me on the channel.
Be,
yes, good to catch up.
One of many. Yes. because it's like the first 1 week, of course, we have to cover everything because I haven't chatted. And this is how it happened. We just, people.
We can get more fine-tuned on the next one, can't we?
Yes, exactly. Because then you just get chatted. That's how it goes, isn't it? It's live chat. That's it. Real
Absolutely.
people, real life, real chat. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, anyway, guys, thank you everybody for watching. And
thank you very much.
You can join us on the next one really soon. And we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.
See you all soon. Cheers.
Bye-bye.